Hey, everybody, welcome to the Wake Up Late with Dougie show. I am your host, Dougie Almeida, coming to you from Simpsonville, South Carolina, where I'm blending in all the time. That's right, beautiful here in Simpsonville, South Carolina, where it's not as humid as South Florida at the moment. Thank God. And just glad to be back again. As you know, we do these shows on a somewhat regular basis, every couple of weeks, depending if I'm in town or not. So thanks for sticking around with us, and please share the video with your friends and any comedy fans that like to watch and laugh and have a podcast. Whether you want to watch it or you hear us on any of the podcast sources, Amazon, Podbean, iTunes, whatever it is, you know what I mean? Don't be lazy. Please share it. We appreciate the attention. And great show today. I have a great guest who, good friend, fellow comedian, and promoter of an amazing new comedy channel and comedy, I don't know how you call it, resource, but Open Bar Comedy. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to the very funny Ron Feingold, everybody. What's up, buddy?
Hey, how's it going?
I'm doing pretty good, man. I'm doing pretty good. You getting groceries? You got a to-do list? You got a honey-do list you're working on?
Actually, I'm on the road. We are filming for Open Bar tomorrow night in Colorado Springs, and we have two filming locations. One's at Looney's Comedy Corner here in Colorado Springs, which is actually my hometown club where I started 35 years ago almost. And we also film in Sarasota, which is where your special was filmed at McCurdy's Comedy Theater. But yeah, we it's a platform. I think the word you were looking for.
Thank
Um,
you.
Open Bar Comedy is a comedy platform, and you'll find us on YouTube or Facebook. And we started releasing videos and specials about a year and a half ago now. It was April of 2023. And we've been shooting since April of 2022. But since we launched in April of 2023, we have over 500,000 followers on Facebook, over 10,000 subscribers on YouTube, and just we really are showcasing some of the greatest comedians in America that don't really fit the other platform.
Yeah, and when you mentioned the other platform, that is the Dry Bar Comedy, which when it first came out, big, it was a big thing. I know as a
I,
comic, I wanted to do it. I'm like, okay, I got to write 30 minutes or whatever it was, 45 minutes of Mormon type clean comedy. So you know that was it. You can't tell jokes about politics, sex, drugs, a lot of things. And so I was preparing for it. And then, as the time went on, I guess there's been some, I don't know, some things about that now where we've seen some people on there that probably, aren't the best in the industry in a sense because of that criteria. I don't know, but that's just something I've heard, not particularly would witness and vouch for. But the great thing is about Open Bar, you can do whatever you want.
correct. Um, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know about any other platform, so I can't even. I don't even know about them. I don't know about them. But we allow anybody. I mean, I don't want anybody to show up feeling nervous about their set, thinking that, hey, I can't say this. Can I say that? I'm not giving anybody a list of words or subjects that they cannot say. That's what comedy is about to me. It's an art form. You don't tell an artist how they should paint. You shouldn't tell a comic how he should tell his jokes. And I think everything has its niche and everything has its place and its space. But I just think there's a lot more people on the freedom of expression side of comedy, as opposed to the ones that want to restrict language.
That as a comic, that's the funniest thing. Like I recently did a show up here in South Carolina where, they wanted to clean, like TV clean. And it's amazing how broad of a definition that may be if you had asked 20 comics what their definition of TV clean is,
Yes.
and it's always funny because even some of the most veterans of comedians, when you say that, they'll be like, "Can I say dick?" It's like it's always funny because I was even that way because I remember I was sitting there. I said, "Okay," I basically had my 20 minutes set in my mind what I would do, which is TV clean. Basically no curse words, no vulgarity or sexually explicit type stuff. And but then these people started walking in, and I mean, it looks like they were going to film the remake of Cocoon. I mean, I was like, oh my god, and it just looked like they're all just got out of church. You know what I mean? Just that look, and I'm like,
Yeah.
holy shit, I can't do that joke. I'm started second guessing, you know, but I mean, isn't that amazing when you try to figure out what somebody would want? Like you said, when they ask, if somebody asks you to like, hey, can you.
Yeah, those gigs, you totally have to figure out what exactly they want and get a clear view, because everybody has a subjective definition of what clean is. And that definition will run the gamut. So, especially in South Carolina, man, the whole thing about South Carolina, I'll never figure it. I mean, South Carolina is one of the most religious states in the Union, if not the most religious. Next to Mississippi, maybe, in Alabama. Um, South Carolina is so religious. And I did a corporate show there for the South Carolina Auto Dealers Association. I did a clean show. Everything was clean. And then at the very end, I did a joke about Jesus that I thought, and it was a clean joke about Jesus. And I got a horrible report about it because they absolutely hated the joke. And they just, you don't joke about Jesus in South Carolina, regardless of the joke, you just don't do. So,
That's yeah.
um, you have to get those things clarified. And I was dumb enough to do the joke, I guess, but I don't care. But I even said, there were these huge big aprons on the stage, and I said, let's give it up for, we asked Dolly Parton to borrow her brassiere, for the curtains here tonight, and nothing, just silence, crickets. So that's when I should have known in the beginning of the show that I shouldn't have done my closer then. But yeah, you have to be very specific about what the definition of clean is.
My buddy Tom Emmons, who is a clean comic, who actually runs this particular venue I was at. It's funny because you would think, okay, clean. I'm not going to say shit or fuck or any of these words, right? But if you're in a Christian or pretty religious neighborhood or with audience, you would think the expression "God damn," but that "God damn" to a religious audience is almost as bad as the F bomb. So they
It's worse.
yeah, yeah. You're
Oh,
yeah, yeah.
do not take the Lord's name in vain. It is huge, huge, a big no-no. You never drop a GD in any place like that. And just as soon as you cross the state line of South Carolina, drop the GDs. Um,
I
yeah, Tom Evans is a peachy comedian, by the way.
Yeah, and it's funny because I remember being at a show and it was like that. It was a clean show, and the guy was doing great. It was like 15 minutes into his set, and clean and talking about this and that, and he dropped the GD, and I just watched the audience just and they
Mm,
turned on this guy, and it was just and I'll never ever those are moments you just don't forget, when you witness it. You're like, I will never ever
yeah,
you know say that again in front of
that's
anybody.
that's the thing about comedy is most of the lessons are learned the hard way. The
Yeah.
real hard way. I did a show for Coachman Industries, the people that make the RVs, and I'm making fun of this guy with a big fat cigar in the front row. And little did I know, the guy in the front row with the big fat cigar was the CEO of Coachman Industries, and I didn't do my homework, and nobody's laughing during the show because I'm coming down on the guy that provides them with their paycheck. So the wife berates me after the show. Is like, can you believe you? Can't you believe that you did this comedy show and you're going off on the CEO of the company? You didn't even know it was him. But everything's learned the hard way in comedy. That's how it's done.
Yeah, I think for the most part, what's the Marines expression? Learning by fire, right?
Hmm.
You never forget it that way when it comes down to that. Corporate gigs. I mean, let me ask you about that. Like, I've done a few. I'm not a corporate gig comic, and first of all, they're one of the most how do you say they're just not fun. You know what I mean? It's like I thank God I have money. You know what I mean? I don't do comedy for money. I have money. I've
Uh-huh.
I've got 20,000 shares of Amazon. I don't do shit I don't do this for the money. I do this merely to watch the laughter and just try to just make a few hundred people laugh their ass off with the things I say. Right? That is what I get out of it. But that's why people ask me to do a corporate gig. I'm just like, ugh, and I give like a ridiculous number, like 5,000, 10, like that's a bit out of our, well, yeah, I'm sorry, because because even if I got paid, even when you go, all the stress that you have going there, and then the lights are bright in a corporate event, they don't dim the lights in corporate events. all their coworkers are together, and they're like, oh my god, they're not going to laugh at these jokes because they don't want to see their coworkers to know that they're laughing at that type of joke. I mean, it's just a brutal gig, isn't it?
It is, and I, for the record, do not have 20,000 shares of Amazon, so I will take 5,000 fucking dollars for your corporate show. That's my corporate price is 5K. That's where my price range is, and I feel comfortable with that, and it's worth it because I put the time into it. I send them a questionnaire, I do my research, I write a custom song for that group. I learned the hard way how to do a corporate show, but it's all about preparation and finding out who's there and being able to work with. You're really good with crowd work too, so you would do really well, I think, if you were able to do more crowd work and dive into the audience more. You're really quick with that stuff. So that's the fun thing to do in a corporate show. If you can find somebody who's a good whipping boy, and you can find out who that is before you even get there. Who can I make fun of that has a great sense of humor is what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
And then that person is the person that I go to as kind of like the deflector when things get a little bit rough with the material. I can always go back to that guy and we can make light of something with it again. But corporate shows are a completely different animal, and I mean, but they can be great too. I mean, very lucrative. I have friends that make 25,000 a show just to go in there and ask them questions and talk, extemporaneously. So there's great money in corporate shows, but apparently better as a financial planners.
Yeah, well, my favorite, the best corporate gig to this day I've done was for Tint World. It turns out one of my buddies I
Tint
went to
World,
high
yeah.
school with is one of their top executive officers. So I ended up going to the Gaylord Palm Resort in Orlando. Beautiful place,
Hmm.
a big room with everybody. And I'm thinking, oh, corporate. And then you look at these. These are the folks that like put tin on your window, put like sound systems in your car, the big big speakers and all that shit. Sound, and they put the tints, like what they call the wraps on the cars instead of paint. They
Sure.
put those wraps, which are really cool and shit. So it was like it was almost like it was almost like a comedy club act. You know what I mean? It was like
Yeah.
it was not like a corporate act. So that to this day was my favorite one to do. I wanted to ask you with
Yeah.
open bar. We kind of touched on it a little bit, but what was the inspiration to you? Was it because what you said about being able to have a platform, for comics to come and do whatever they want?
There's a few different motivations, but one of them was creating a legacy for comedians that don't fit other platforms. There's so many amazing comedians that have been crisscrossing the country for decades, and kind of wasting away in comedy clubs that nobody knows who they are because they don't do their own social media, they don't film themselves, and they don't put their stuff out, and nobody knows about them. Perfect example is Caroline Picard or Charlie Wiener. You know Charlie Wiener, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Or heard of him? So,
yeah.
I
I've
mean,
worked with him a
Charlie
couple
has
times.
been, yeah, 45, 50 years on the road as a comedian and never had a special. And he doesn't fit the other formats. So I wanted to create something that not only creates a legacy and a historical record for those comedians, but I also wanted to give freedom of expression a platform that kind of um, showcases the amazing talent that's out there in the clubs. So I felt like the platforms that were doing it didn't have really good veteran comedians doing it. Because if you notice, the comedians that we have on our platform have been headlining at least 10 years. 98% of them, unless we got something crazy going on, 98% of them have been headlining for about 10 years. And that's one of my benchmarks is I want somebody to come in seasoned and other things. This is nothing bad against Don't Tell Comedy. They have wonderful comedians on there, but they're comedians that have been, for the most part, the majority of them have been comedians for less than 10 years, a lot
Yeah.
less than 10 years, a lot younger audience or a lot younger demographic of comedians. They have, Susan Rice has been on there. She did great. Um, but for the most part, I wanted to put comedians that were more seasoned and have had at least 10 years of experience for open bar and create that format. And the third reason was I wanted something as a legacy for myself, as far as my place in comedy, what I wanted to do in comedy, and what kind of mark I wanted to leave as a producer and as somebody, as an entrepreneur. And I've been a serial entrepreneur all my life. And this is the one that I really thought was the best idea that could take it to a way that I could make money while I sleep and it's working out that way. So those three factors really went into going for it. But right before Open Bar was conceptualized, I was going to be an airline pilot, and then
Yeah.
I was going to stop going on the road, and I made that announcement in January of 2020, and put it out there to the world, like, hey, here's my airplane. I'm going to train in this thing and become an airline pilot, like I was going to do 30 years ago, and now I'm going to do it. And then March of 2020 happened and put the kibosh on that real fucking quick. And then I said, well, what can I do? What am I going to do? Well, shit, I'll just do this. At the time, it was going to be called Wet Bar. And then a friend of mine, Vince Morris, goes, you should call it Open Bar. I'm like, I like that a lot better. He came up with
Yeah.
the name.
Better ring.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Much better.
so that's how it's conceptualized.
That's awesome. And, I had a great time doing my special there. And, like we mentioned crowd work, because, I didn't know if I should or shouldn't do it, because that's something, one of the things I was going to do on our Let Me Ask You was what you thought about crowd work. So we'll address
Mm-hmm.
that question early. But, because that's what I do. It's like, I work sometimes with people, like if I'm opening for them and they're like, please don't do crowd work. I'm like, all right, but you know what? It's kind of who I am. I'm just this guy who that's where I got into comedy. My wife used to
Mm-hmm.
always say to me, like, oh my God, when we're around our friends, that's why I fell in love with you, because you were just like, you would just sit there and you could tell, and that's how my father was. It's something I inherited from my
Sure.
pops. But and I had like, I mean, there's moments in the special where you just had to reach out. Like we had that one guy sitting in the front, right, who was wearing that ridiculous
I was just
shirt,
going to say that. Yeah.
and everybody was messing with him.
No, you asked the guy that if he was fucking his sisters. You asked something about fucking his sister. I couldn't remember what exactly you were saying, but it was so funny.
Yeah, if you don't, it's up. Go see my special. I mean no harm on Open Bar, but I had a great time doing it. It's crowd work. I mean, let me just start with that. What is your feeling on crowd work?
Sure. If you can do it and do it well, do it. If you attempt it and you continually do it poorly, you should take it out of your act.
Yeah,
Um, I think it's an innate thing. I think, just like you said, you inherited a very quick wit from your father. And I think if you don't have a quick wit and if you can't call an audible really quick, if you don't have that ability, then crowd work is not going to be your strong suit. And a lot of comedians just want to go in scripted and make sure that they just stick to their act and just stay in that mode. But me personally, I like going into crowd work and doing crowd work because it comes up with just some amazing moments that will never be recreated again. Like in my special, I had a girl that I asked her, it was her birthday, and there were twins. And the twins' name were Genera and Jenna Ray. That was their name. And I'm like, that's your names, Genera and Jenna Ray? That's what your parents named you? I'm like, do you have a little brother named Generic?
yeah,
So never in a million years will I have another show with Genera and Genere where I could drop that line. So it just popped into my head and I used it and it became a great moment. So Matt Rife gets a lot of shit for doing crowd work, but he does it well. He does a
yeah.
really good job. He's really good at crowd work. So he should stick with what he's good with and he's made a good living at it. And I think the only clips that I see now are theater shows of him doing crowd work. Rarely see any
Well, have
actual
you seen his?
material.
Did you see his special?
I saw a little bit of it, but I'm so busy watching my own people's specials. I don't have much
Exactly.
time for Netflix.
I actually watched it because I was with a friend who, she's a comedy fan, and she goes, "I always wanted to watch it." I'm like, "Well, I don't like you. I don't like to watch comedy because I don't want to subconsciously pick up on something and then
Right.
say it, especially in a moment like that. But I watched it, and she goes, "I really want to know your opinion because you're a comic, and all their girlfriends love him, and all that kind of shit." So, and I watched it, and I was like, like it's just not the same. Like I've had moments, obviously, where I've had plenty of my friend comics say, "Dude, you should just come out and do an hour of crowd work because I mean your material's funny, but the stuff you do on the and that's what happened during my special. I do a joke about a guy man grooming, and there was I guess a couple was sitting there, and they're, I guess it turned out to be their son. And I made a joke about, oh, he doesn't man groom, so the mother must be like, you know, and I says, oh, is this your son? And he was like, yeah. And I'm like, oh shit. I'm like, I guess you didn't know your mom was still blowing dad. And it just crushed. I mean, the
Right.
crowd went nuts.
Yeah, that was a
And
great moment, man. I love that. Yeah. That if anybody comes down on that by saying that that's not comedy, go fuck yourself. Seriously.
it's more it is comedy. To me, like you said, that is the most rewarding moment when you make something up like that out of
Yeah.
nowhere.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's
Yes.
almost like the beauty of an artist when an artist just gets inspired and all of a sudden paints. That is the same moment because the crowd knows it. The crowd knows it just happened. It wasn't manufactured. It wasn't something you've been saying for the last 4 months and telling 10 times a week on the road. It just happened and they got to experience
Yeah, and you get to take a bath in that applause and laughter. You just bathe in it
it.
for a while, just swimming around. I fucking did that.
Yeah. I did that. I did that. Exactly.
That's
And that's what
right.
I said. That's the benefit for me. Um, I'm gonna go through a couple of these other things, but well, you recently announced something about yourself that you're going through, and if you don't mind, I'd like to ask you because
Sure.
what's happened in my life. But
Sure.
you were recently diagnosed with prostate cancer, and
Correct.
and again, I lost my wife to colon cancer last summer, and
Yeah.
it's amazing how that word just when it enters into your life and your family and everybody, how it's just. I mean, unless you've experienced it, you never understand
Yeah.
how like earth moving it is, right?
Yes. However, to keep this in perspective, I'm one of the lucky ones because we caught it early, and I'm on the curable side of this, and that's why I haven't really had many moments of sinking yet. I had about 3 days of the big C word entering my vocabulary and in my body. And after 3 days, I said, well, I can either dwell on this or I can do something good with it. And when I was during those 3 days, I was talking to a lot of men in my circle. I have about five best friends. And of those five best friends, four of them didn't know what their PSA numbers were. They had no idea. They never had a prostate exam, never had the blood work done. So I made all of them promise that they were going to go get that done. But it made me realize all these guys could get their prostate cancer issues cured if they find it early. So
Yeah.
my doctor is also my urologist, and he's a great urologist named Dr. Sijo Parakidal, and he did my wife's kidney stones is when we met him, and he's done a lot of things for my hernia operations, and he's a robotic doctor. He's into technology. So he and I came up with a program. It's called Just a Prick. It's a cancer screening awareness program called Just a Prick, and we're doing comedy shows in combination with cancer screenings to get men just to take the blood test. It's just a prick, and my doctor will evaluate the results for free, and
Oh, wow.
we'll catch more men doing it. So, um, that's my way of dealing with it, is helping other people. I guess it's kind of deflecting the feelings by helping other people. Is the truth of it. I'm having a procedure called a laser ablation, which is the most highly technical version of how to fix something like this, as opposed to radiation or chemotherapy. And they are basically this is where we get graphic. They're shoving an MRI machine, a small MRI machine, up my ass, and it takes a picture of my prostate in 3D. It makes my prostate in 3D, and my doctor's looking at it like in a VR, and they can see exactly where the lesion or the cancer is. And they take a laser, a very hot light laser, and they heat up the area that they're taking the cancer out of, and just that area, so they leave my urethra alone and all the other stuff that makes boners happy. So,
Yeah.
um, and so it's all pointed and directed and only taking what they need. And they have a 100% success rate, and I feel good about it. So, it's gonna hurt to pee for a while, but I'll be alive.
Not a bad
So
trade-off.
yeah, so I'm on the lucky end of this. I really am. And I want to make sure that a lot of other guys get on the lucky end too. So anybody out there, if you're haven't had a prostate exam before, it's not getting a crank in the ass by a doctor with one or two fingers. It's a blood test. And that's the best way to do it, is a blood test, just to see what your PSA numbers are and if they go up over time. And if they do, you just get another biopsy, and it's a very fixable, curable type of cancer.
Yeah, prostate cancer, I guess, and throat cancer, it's two of the most, for men especially, are two of the most curable, like, the ones that you can really, especially like you mentioned early. And, like, that was the thing of my wife. We didn't, when we found it, it was stage three already. And that's really difficult. And, like
Yeah.
I tell people that, like I had a colonoscopy done just a couple months ago. And
Mm-hmm.
because of the trauma of everything that went through, I had post traumatic like anxiety when I'm sitting there prepping before, and I'm crying like a child. The doctor walks in and he's like, "Are you all right?" And I explained to him, what was, and he's like, "Oh my God." He's like, "Well, we're going to make sure that doesn't happen to you." And, I want to say this about this because, some people say are lazy to get a colonoscopy. They think it's really hard. Listen, nowadays you drink some Gatorade with some other shit mixed in it. Your ass turns into a fire hydrant for a few hours. But other than that, you don't get to eat for a day. But it's not a bad thing to kind of flush the body out in a sense. But then, you get put to bed, you take that twilight, you wake up, and like for me, they found a few polyps, you know, and
Okay.
so had I done Cologuard, which I would never suggest to anybody, if you get that done, like I would have got that done, it would have said you're fine, and then another 3 or 4 years would have passed, and I would have been that shit would have been growing, and then it could have become cancer. So
Yeah.
like I was, oh my God, when I got the report, I was like, oh God, like again, the trauma of everything and this anxiety, and but my doctor said, he goes, look, man, we got rid of it. That's the best part. It's gone.
Yeah.
That's it. So that's how you beat colon cancer. You get it before it starts. So early, and and I just had this past year. I had the second time I had the finger up the butt, and it's funny because my doctor, I always find a woman who's got small hands. Of course, that's part of the criteria. I don't care what medical school she went to or they went to. I just want to make sure, I don't get a guy from Eastern Europe, Doctor Gunter, as my fucking doc, you know. But and she might. It's nice if she's a little attractive too, because that helps. But nevertheless,
Yeah.
but you're right.
Tickle my balls. Go
Yeah,
ahead. Sorry.
go to Doctor Drop and Cough. But yeah, you got to get that shit checked. And I'm at that stage where I go every 3 months for blood work and all that stuff. But
Hmm.
I remember the last time I got it done. She was in there, and I'm like, she's like, did it hurt? I'm like, well, I didn't enjoy, like, you know what I mean? Like, of course it hurt. What do I look like? You know,
Yeah, it
I mean, it
does.
wasn't. It's not comfortable when somebody sticks their finger up your ass. Or at least not for me. I know some of you fellas like that, but it's not my cup of tea. You know,
Me neither. You could have said no too, by the way. You can refuse that test and just do the PSA. So you can just tell them no
Well, I
next
thought it was
time.
odd
You don't need the
because when
test.
my doctor, what's that old joke? My doctor checked my prostate, and I said, "Doc, is that your right hand on my right shoulder?" Yeah. Is that your left hand on my left shoulder? Yeah. Well, I can't remember how the joke. You know what I mean? But yeah, you
Yeah.
could just get some of these things done. It's amazing. And the other little bit of advice is, one of the things I learned when somebody has cancer, and everybody's well-meaning, but you'll have everybody on earth trying to tell you solutions, right? And they'll always tell you, "Oh, you got to do this, you got to do that," and it's like, look, it's people mean well, but sometimes it can be overwhelming.
Yeah. And you know what? Thank you, Doug, in advance for not telling me that I got this. Because I was counting the you got this. You know, that's how people tell people with cancer that you can do this, is by telling them, you got this. Yeah, I fucking got cancer. You're right. I did get this. Thank you for
Yeah,
reminding me yet again. I got this. But,
it's
I think it's just a weird, it just strikes me as weird that people, that's what they say to, like, you got this. It's a weird thing to say to somebody with cancer.
yeah. I wish I didn't. People mean, that's a thing. People mean well, but it's such an awkward
Hmm.
thing, and that's why God bless my wife because she didn't want anybody to know. It wasn't like we started telling, and her and I were complete opposites. She was very to herself. I'm expressive.
Yeah.
And even some of our neighbors here in South Carolina were a little upset, but like, how come you didn't let us know? My wife battled cancer. I'm like, look, my wife didn't want to be the attention, and she knew she didn't want to be
Right.
dealing with all that. And yeah, you know, just it's really hard when you know somebody. Like I remember you posted something about people, yeah, saying either that or, you know, like oh my god, like you know they're ready, like trying to console you, and you know life's so like you know it's just amazing. That's what it is. It's such a weird thing, you know, to have to deal with.
It is.
You know what? Thank God we found it early, and pretty soon you won't have it. That's the best part.
Yeah,
What do you think?
absolutely. Yep, I'm positive about it.
Let me ask you, that being said, if there was one thing you could go back in time and change, Ron, about your life or decisions you made, what would it be?
Um, I had an answer to this and I'm forgetting what it was now. But if I had an opportunity to go back and do something, oh, I know what it was. I would. Here's the deal. When I started doing comedy here in Colorado Springs in 1990, and there was a woman that was booking the club. Her name was Judy Brown. Judy Brown. And Judy Brown ended up moving to LA and becoming Judy Brown Marmel. And she's part of Levity Entertainment Group, and she manages Sebastian Maniscalco and Bert Kreischer and um, uh, um, the guy that got the show on CBS, Taylor Tomlinson and Lonnie Love, and just all these huge acts and all of the improvs out west. And so I got my start with her in Colorado Springs here. And I did a contest with her in 1994, which was her kind of leap into the LA world. And she moved to LA and became a staple in the comedy industry out there. And I had an opportunity, if I wanted to go out to LA when she did. If I wanted to, I would have moved when she did because that would have been my in. It's not like a guarantee that she would have helped me, but I would have gotten more involved with her in LA. So I wonder what my life would have been like if I went with her and did the LA thing and got involved, and if my career would have been different. But I don't regret it because I love where I went. I wanted to have a family, I wanted to get married, and that was more important to me than LA or New York.
It's an amazing decision. You know, when I think about decisions like that, I think about our friend Frankie Paul, you know, who had an amazing family. He lives in Melbourne area, you know, and he loves it there. And you know, he grew up with was it Ron Brooks? I remember the black guy, Ron Wood, right? Was his name black guy from a Florida area? They grew up at the same time. Woods, Ronnie Woods. I think I'm trying to remember his name. Anyway,
He's That's the
uh,
Rolling Stone.
yeah, no, yeah. Frankie was an amazing guitar player. No, but you know, but he made that decision. You know, it's like some people say that to me. It's like, why did you move to Greenville, South Carolina? Why didn't you move to L.A. or New York? You know, I'm like, well, first of all, it was because me and my wife wanted to move somewhere, and it wasn't just for my comedy life, right? But like even now, you know, I'm looking at a second home in Austin, Texas, because you know, it's a big boom. I would not live in LA. I would not move to that state, nor would I want to live in New York City at this point. But you know, the costs and the taxes and all that other shit. But you know what I mean. So now I'm looking at Austin. You know,
I
and you
remember
know,
you
for
telling me
me,
about that.
yeah, because you know listen, my wife's not around, and I'm here in South Carolina. It's beautiful, but I don't know anybody here. So when I'm here, unless I go to an open mic, I'm sitting home, which I finally learned how to deal with because now I'm just writing. I'm taking this time to be home and just
Oops.
do that and accept all that stuff. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's that's
Well,
crazy.
here's the thing. If you move to Austin, you're going to be the old guy. You're going to be so old, Doug, because
I know.
they're everybody like my friend Carmen Valone. Carmen just got back. He spent two
Yeah,
weeks out there and just discovering and seeing the Orlando gang that's out there and just having a good time. And Orlando comics have done really well in Austin because Orlando comics have chops. Most of them do.
yeah, good
And I
scene.
think we have a great scene where we really have. I'm so proud of our scene because it's really developed each other. We develop and help each other out. So as opposed to being too cliquish like a lot of other scenes are. So I'm so proud of everybody they've done in Austin, but they're all young. And Carmen said that 80% of the comedians that have gone there have just moved there just to get on Kill Tony, to take their shot at it, thinking that they're going to get famous, on a whim just by being weird. So you would definitely be the professional in the room, but you'd also be the old man in the room. because even Carmen he's 40 and he was the old guy.
Yeah, that's the one thing I'm thinking about. Like, instead of buying a place, I think I'm going to rent like an Airbnb for a month and go down
Yeah.
there and see if because because to me it's like, listen, I'd like to be somewhere where I can go out every night and at least do something, whether it's an open mic or
Mm-hmm.
whether it's hang out. And plus, there's so many people that I would know, so when I went out, I'd run into people and stuff. So that's kind of the thing. But that is the concern, you go there and next thing you know, people are looking at you like, what are you doing here? Are you chaperoning somebody? Uh,
Yeah, right.
you know. Let me ask you, Ron, what is your most
Ah.
memorable moment on stage?
On stage. It's not a good one. Um, I'm sorry, my camera's all screwing up on me. My apologies, guys. Um, where the fuck? How am I doing this? There we go. Okay, so I was doing something called the Moondance Jam in northern Minnesota, and I was opening for REO Speedwagon, Grand Funk Railroad, and the Beach Boys, and they had 12,000 people in front of me, and I was supposed to go on in between all of the acts. So while they were changing the stage and everything, but nobody wants to see a comedian at a rock show. And so they're changing drums in front of me and speakers walking people everywhere. And I'm trying to do my show. So they start throwing rocks at me.
Oh,
Um, it was a horrible fucking show. So I left the stage, obviously. I got booed off the stage in a rock show. So that was the most memorable show. But I
yeah,
think one of the most memorable moments was it was off stage. It was being um, recognized by a fan going into a restaurant with my grandfather. So the fact that not only was I recognized it was cool, but it was in front of my grandfather, which
yeah.
was just the look on his face was really cool. So that was in comedy that was one of the coolest parts of my career was just seeing the look on his face when that happened.
Yeah, that is amazing. I think we were all out to dinner one night, my wife and her friend, and this is probably a little over a year ago, obviously, and we went to some Italian restaurant here in Greenville area, and we're sitting there, and this couple comes up to me, and was like, "Dude, you're," because they saw me at the Comedy Zone. I think it was when I opened for Jamie Lissau that weekend,
Yeah,
uh, and they're like, "Dude, you're the comic," and all these people, my wife's there, and it was, oh, my
yeah.
husband, like, yeah, you're right, the acknowledgement, and all these other people at other tables are like, who is this guy? It's like, is that Ron Jeremy? Um, that's this guy. How do they know this guy? Uh, um, Let me ask you, what are some of the things you don't like about the business of comedy?
There's too many fucking comedians.
Yeah,
Everybody can be a comedian now. I mean, when I started, we were sending out VHS tapes in manila envelopes. And now you can just send an email and it's immediate, or you can post a video, or you can go viral and fill a club. The business and the model has changed tremendously. So the thing that drives me crazy is that there's YouTubers filling my space in a comedy club, and that the art form is being degraded to that point where we're just filling asses in the seats. Where I get it, you got bills to pay, but don't call it comedy. Don't call it a comedy show. Just call it a YouTuber coming in, or give them your name or whatever. Do not call it a comedy show.
yeah, I think a lot. Yeah, it's been pretty rampant, and when it happens, I've had that happen on two ends. I've gone and opened for somebody and just blew their doors off. And then I've opened for
Mm-hmm.
people that have done that are internet's funny, internet famous, but they were hilarious, and you get kind of both.
Yeah,
Um, I know. I think we talked about if you weren't a comic, you would be doing something, maybe being a pilot. So I won't skip that question. But who would be? Oh, let me ask you this first, because Do you like pizza?
sure,
All right. What is your favorite type of pizza? Thin crust, Sicilian, etc. And also, what is your favorite topping?
sure. I'm a Godfather's Pizza fan. Like, if you remember Godfather's Pizza?
Yeah, I worked at it.
Okay, 'cause I don't know what it was. I think the dough was different, maybe, or I don't know. It Godfather's Pizza was like the Dr. Pepper of pizzas to me, because it
Yeah,
tasted different. If that
yeah,
makes sense.
yeah.
So Godfather's was always my favorite stuff, and it's sausage. Godfather's sausage and mushroom pizza. But
There you
I'm
go.
lactose intolerant, so I got to commit.
Yeah, you gotta plan it out. It's funny because when I worked there, they didn't let you like a pizza man like take the dough and do all that. They had a machine. You had to put it in,
Yeah.
and they would spread it for you. And I would sit there and put it through once. And I'd start doing it. The manager would come over. What are you doing? Meanwhile, my brother's pizza man. It's like my family had pizza in their blood, and then they made you measure. Like every topping, you had to put it in a thing and measure it. I'm like, are you kidding me, dude? I'm just throwing this shit. I ended up getting fired because
Yeah.
I was too much of a New York style type pizza man. All right, my last question for let me ask you is who is on your comedy Mount Rushmore?
Carlin, of course. Pryor. Um, Matt Rife. I'm just kidding. Let's see. I'm just fucking with you. Let's see. It's hard to decide. Um, I think uh, Bernie Mac was beyond brilliant, so he would be up there too. But Eddie Murphy, Eddie Murphy.
Hmm.
I grew up on Eddie
Yeah.
Murphy, and he's to me still the goat. His stuff still stands up after all this time. You go watch Raw or Delirious; it still stands up, and that's what formed me and my sense of humor. So Eddie Murphy is where Lincoln is.
Gotcha. And you mentioned Bernie Mac. That the comics that impressed me were the comics that almost no matter it's almost like, and I think of like Chappelle in that sense. Like I mentioned this to comics when they asked me about writing and they asked my advice about joke writing or something. I said, something Rich Voss told me many years ago when I first met him, started working with him. He goes, "There's going to come a day where you're not saying jokes, but you're saying things that are funny." And I remember the first joke I ever wrote about that was my opening joke I used to say when I was 40 pounds heavier, but it was, "I'm in a good mood because I fit in this shirt." And, it's not really a joke. It's just something you're saying. And, I look at somebody like Chappelle, he basically just his mannerisms and the way he talks, like Bernie Mac. I mean, that voice, those eyes, his
A
expressions and the
command,
shit. Yeah, it
yeah.
was, he was just one of those guys like, fucking, and that fucking just hilarious as fuck. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
his role in
fearless.
his role in Ocean's 11 and stuff, he was so fucking good in that
Hmm.
movie, man. I loved
Yeah,
it. All right. Let's get
yeah.
to before timer's up. Let's go to Did You Hear? This is where we bring up stories of recent news, and as comics, we're going to do exactly what comics do. Is we're going to find the funny angle on it, of course. Boy, nothing worse than hitting a stage. You know, I remember a long time ago, a comic once told me, he's like, don't audition for the comedy club if you think you may fuck it up. And this was this past weekend at the Major League Baseball All Star game during the Home Run Derby. But the national anthem was sung by Ingrid Andress, who I don't even know, but I guess she's a
Yeah, I
country
don't either.
singer. But
Hmm.
she is now awarded the worst rendition of the national anthem. Play some of this, Ben.
Oh, say does that star-spangled
Huh?
banner yet wave o'er the land of the
Oh, God.
free?
Oh. It sounds like she's getting her prostate lasered.
No.
You know,
Holy shit. Well, here's the thing. There's one more that's cringier than that. Um, Carl Lewis. If you ever get a chance,
I
listen. Carl Lewis. Carl Lewis started off in the wrong key, and if you don't start off the Star Spangled Banner in the wrong key, by the time you get to "and the rocket's red glare," if
yeah.
you don't start that off right, it's gonna go really bad. So Carl Lewis goes, "and the rocket's red glare." It's so horrible.
I remember that. That's so funny. Oh
Oh,
God,
it's
yeah,
so funny.
brutal.
And you see all the basketball players are just laughing so hard. Oh, that was really bad. I hadn't seen that yet.
Yeah, one of the fastest runners in history, but one of the worst singers. All right, speaking of singers, comedian actor Jack Black and his band Tenacious D were performing in Australia. And there's an interesting part of this story because sometimes it's amazing the decisions we make on stage. Somebody asked me because I work with wealthy people, right? I'm a fiduciary. I manage money for very wealthy people, and somebody asked me, like, what is one thing that's consistent with those who are successful in life? It's not their upbringing, it's not their race or their color, or it's the decisions they make. And this is a great example of the story. Ben, do we have the video of what happened? Okay. Well, basically, in the middle of a concert in Australia, Jack Black asks his partner, who's with the band with him, it's your happy birthday. What do you want for your birthday? And this guy decides to say for them not to miss Trump next time. And wow.
Yeah.
The Australian government wanted to have them deported. you know,
Really?
the tour
See,
is canceled.
yeah, I think it's gone way overboard. I mean, yes, horrible thing to say. Totally agree. I totally agree. However, um, I think the group's even going to break up over this. I mean, I think Jack Black has totally disowned him and said,
Yep.
I that took me back, and I have nothing to do with that comment, and I don't know what's going to happen with this group anymore. But uh, I just don't think that one give the guy
Where's Scott?
there it is.
Make a wish, Canada. Don't miss Trump next time.
That's a moment where he says, I wish I can go back in time. How many times have we done that?
Yeah,
I wish I can go back in time.
yeah. Um, Especially when it's your own show like that, you don't think it's going to be broadcast to the rest of the world. You're just being funny. I'm sure that his excuse is, I was just being funny, but
Yeah.
and I don't think that he's the only one that thought that. But he's the one that got caught, I guess, and he's being made a scapegoat. I don't think it should be. I think there's bigger fish to fry and bigger issues going on in the world than that. Than some
Yeah.
comedian being canceled over a comment. Who cares? Really?
Yeah. I mean, I'm both. I don't know how I kind of feel about it, but, I believe in freedom of speech and all that. But, the wishing harm on somebody in a sense, or saying it like a local comic, I don't know if I would even broadcast his name, posted on Facebook this. He goes, boy, we are 1 inch away from this being an amazing weekend. And this particular comic's actually been found guilty of rape. And it was a moment for me where I said, I'm done with this guy because he's
Mhm.
and I didn't find any humor in that. I even be honest with you, I thought it should have been reported to Facebook, and the post was still around. So, what are you going to do? Here's
Yeah.
a, go ahead. Are you going to say something?
No, I just, everybody has something to say about everything. It's just, should we all be held responsible for an opinion?
I don't like the opinion. To me, the problem that I always have with certain things is I'm okay if you say something as long as you're not hypocritical. You know
Hmm.
what I'm saying? Like there are people that are saying, "Oh, Trump deserved it because he's a mean person. He put it on himself." And I get you. I understand why you would say that, right? And then these are the same people that want to glorify and make, um, 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 God Almighty, I always blank on his name. The guy who got killed by the cop when everybody rioted in the 20s, 2020,
George Floyd?
uh, George
George
Floyd.
Floyd.
Yeah. And when this happened, I said, look, I always feel sympathy for people that are undeserving, right? Like if people, innocent bystander shot or something happens, and those things are horrible to me. So, but if somebody does bad things and spends their day doing bad things and always does bad things, then bad things will probably happen to you. So you know what I mean. I agree with that. So, but for somebody to say, oh well, Trump deserved it, but then they're going to sit there and glorify somebody like that, I'm like, well, this doesn't weigh up. You're going to be consistent. You have to be consistent. It's almost like, they say, well, somebody like that, because I made a point. I'm like, look, you can't have a political party calling somebody Hitler and saying all kinds of bad shit and this person's this and this person's this and not expect some hooplehead to fucking jump on that and try to do something stupid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Uh, and people say, "Oh, well, that's not true." But then these are the same people that said Trump was the one who insinuated the insurrection, because of things he said. I'm like, well, listen, you got to have it one way or the other. So if you say that about the Demo and all that stuff, I agree. That's fine, but don't say on the other side of the fence, when things kind of flip flop. So just be consistent with your beliefs. 6'9" model holds title for the world's tallest catwalker from the Guinness Book of Records. This girl, 6'9". I know you're a married man, Ron, but tall women. I think your wife's kind of tall, if I remember. But you ever been with a woman over 6.5 feet tall?
Never 6.5 feet tall, but I gotta tell you, it's I fucking love it. If my wife is in heels or something taller than me, for whatever reason, for that's like a total turn on. I don't know why. But if she's 6'9", that means her pussy is like at 5'1". So it'd be,
No,
you could go up on her.
exactly, and you wouldn't have to worry about hurting your neck. I
Yeah.
yeah, Eastern European women were always my big. Oh God, they were South Beach. They were full of them, and I remember one time I was with this woman like 6'2" or something like that. We're in this little hotel room in South Beach, and the lamps getting hit with her legs, and the TV's getting knocked over, and it was just amazing. All right. Um, uh, Now, here's interesting. In New York, this was a story a couple weeks ago, but a New York City banker allegedly seen punching a woman at a pride event surrenders to police. I believe, I think, I don't know if you're practicing, but are you you're Jewish, just by you're not. So Feingold is not a Jewish name in a sense, or okay. So
You can make your own assumptions, but as far as my belief in God, it's waning.
I gotcha. So, the thing about this is, this particular story is weird. I'm gonna wrap it up in a sense with this, but this guy's walking down the street, and these pro-Palestinian protesters with blue hair, and they're all accosting people on the streets in New York. They're pushing the guy, and they throw some shit in his face, and they basically, when somebody throws something at you, that's assault. Okay,
Yes.
it's if somebody spits on you, okay, that's assault, and so this person does this. The woman throws the soda or whatever the hell is, and the guy punches her in the face. Now, I don't know if I'd ever hit a woman, but if I'm sitting around 8 or 9 people and I'm being accosted, I'm going to hit whoever I want to hit at that point. You know what I mean? Probably my strategy would be hit the biggest asshole that's in that group, and then work down from there. But so what I mean, honestly, that's just the way it is. But this guy hits it. Everybody sees that, and this guy goes to jail. But nobody in that group or mob that accosted the guy sees any issue. So this,
Is there any footage of the Palestinian people? I almost said lesbian. Of the Palestinian um, people throwing this stuff at him, or there's any footage of that?
there was video originally when the story came out. I'm sure if you look at it, but he's walking down the street. They're pushing him. They're grabbing him. They're fighting him. They threw something in his face because he's starting to. What is he going to do? Like you have it. I'm blessed in the sense that I've been in the martial arts since I'm 4 years old, so I'm pretty capable. One thing, A, not losing my cool, but B, being able to utilize strategy and certain things to take care of more than a couple people at once, right? Like there's movement, strategic gesture. You grab somebody's shoulder, push the other person, get two. If you're 2 or 3 people in front of you, you can almost get to where you're only fighting one at a time. If you move the right way and stuff. So, but they all attacked him. They came at him and stuff. And then listen, if you could do that one, that move in the video games where you just start spinning like a top and just start fucking, you know, beating their like Tyranian Tasmanian devil, just like smacking the shit out of people. Um,
Doug is Doug is beating the shit out of people. Like, I'm dropping 20,000 shares of Amazon on you, bitch.
exactly. You know what I mean? I do. We had oh my God, we had a situation at an open mic here a week ago. And some guy in the middle of the open mic, this guy walks right down the middle of the little theater in there, and he comes saying stuff and about get out. The host is like, get out, get out. And the guy's like, he's like, who knows? He's fucked up in the head. And he gets up
Mhm.
there, and he's a bigger dude. And he gets up there, and I'm sitting there going, oh my God, this is the first open mic. I was dealing with severe depression that day because a lot of shit, going on with my wife. I remember, and this guy just goes up and the young comics aren't going to do anything. I said, "Fuck this!" I just get up and I just grab the guy and I start pulling his fucking ass out of the room, you know. And it turns out
It's
somebody
awesome.
pulled up a video from a year ago where the guy did the same thing in an airport.
Oh
He
wow.
used those Eminem. He starts reciting the Eminem. I'm not afraid. He throws his sunglasses down, and the guy like squares off with me. Now,
Oh my god.
you know, I'm thinking, okay, it's been a while, probably since I fought or trained. I got carpal tunnel in both hands. But if I have to, and the guy went like he was going to spit on me, and I just smiled at him because that was always my big thing. And I kind of took my shoulder back. And I said, if this guy spits, he's not going to wake up for a few days. It's just going to be, he's going to feel all the fury of the last year or so. Fucking, it's going to be like a punch from like with fire, like the Iron Fist in Marvel Comics. Yeah, so crazy shit.
S-
Our
So
Go
if I
ahead.
see you smiling at me, you're about to cold cock me, maybe?
Yeah,
That's your
back
thing?
up. Yeah, when I start smiling, it's not a good sign. Our last story is American Airlines flight had to make emergency landing after man exposed himself and urinated in an aisle. Wow, you know.
Yeah. Let me tell you why I did that. Um, oh, go
I
ahead.
mean,
Sorry, go ahead.
I mean, isn't that? Listen, I've been on. There's a couple times I've been on a plane recently where we were ready to land, right, and I had a fucking pee. I mean,
Hmm.
it's like please push everything, and I'm like, oh my god, and I'm sitting there going, oh, I can't. So I remember getting up, and the stewardess said, "Sir, you got to sit down." I go, if I don't go to the bathroom, I'm pissing right here in the middle of the aisle. And she goes, well, go
Yeah.
ahead. What are you going to do? So I don't know if this was the guy's deal, but he was arrested. He showed him. He pulled out his dick in the middle of the aisle and pissed. You know, I mean, you thought having somebody's feet on your chair was bad. You know, I guess that is the ultimate bad flight. Um,
Can you tell us exactly when the cock came out and touched your ear? You said it touched your ear?
yeah, yeah.
That's fucking
Was it
awesome.
warm piss or was it cold piss?
Oh my god, that's great. Yeah, I've totally been in that position where I've had to pee really bad and get off the airplane. I have to pee real bad right now. But it's yeah, what are you going to do? I mean, they're not going to stop you on the airplane if you really get up. I mean, they're just going to warn you and if you really got to go, you got to go. But man, that's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Whoever he pissed on, we apologized, and they had to reenact an R. Kelly video. Um, Now, here's our last segment. It's called Let's Associate. I'm going to give you a few expressions or terms. You can either share the first thing that comes to your mind, whether it's a story, a word, whatever it is whatever thought it conjures up. Uh,
Sure.
you go ahead and do it. Our first word for Let's Associate is hack.
Hack. I have so many comedians' names that I could come to mind right now, but I'm not going to say any of them. But I think of the comics that I have seen that I just go to some town that I'm touring in, and they have these comics in front of me. That's exactly what I see. These hacks that they place in front of us. That's about it.
All right.
I
Our
won't say
second
any
word,
names.
no, no names. Our second word is open mic.
Well, back to the hacks that we were talking about a second ago.
Yeah.
It's just exactly what I was. No,
Yeah.
I throw up in my mouth every time I hear open mic. I throw up in my mouth. I hated open mics. It's just full of other guys that were like me that aren't going to laugh. I'm not going to laugh at their jokes. They're probably not going to laugh at mine. Why am I here? So, open mics are some of the. I mean, if you want to go see a very human experiment, go watch an open mic someday if you've never gone, and go watch
Yeah.
the
Whenever
comics off stage, not on stage.
Yeah, that's probably the more entertaining thing. My wife used to get when I used to go to open mics with my wife. I'd sit there and I'd be like visually expressive. Like somebody would be up there, I'd be like, "Oh my god," like fuck. And my wife would be like, "Stop looking at people are looking at you. What you're doing? They're watching your expressions."
Yeah, it's really
You know,
uncomfortable.
and if you've never been to an open mic night, it's kind of like going to a strip club during the day. That's usually
Yeah,
something I like to
exactly.
vet. Our next expression or phrase is running the light.
Running the light. I think of Dean Napolitano. Dean Napolitano doing a marathon 2 hour show. But one of the best guys that I've ever seen run the light was a guy named Jack Marion. It was one of my first ever tours. I was in Farmington, New Mexico. and it was a gig that was in a Mexican restaurant. It was at the airport, though. At the airport of like a little small airport, these small commuter planes would pull right up to behind the stage. Hear this loud airplane telling jokes behind us. So, but an amazing comedian by the name of Jack Marion. He claims that Robin Williams stole his act. But he was a San Francisco comic, and I saw him do a 2-hour show and nobody walked. It was amazing.
Wow. And by the way, from what I understand, Robin Williams stole a lot of people's jokes.
Yes, that's
I
so they say.
actually, yeah. Well, it was funny because I had Tom Dresden on the show once. Famous
Mhm.
comic. Actually opened for Frank Sinatra. He's
Yes,
big, and
yes.
he has a great book. Actually, Tom has a great book you should read. But he told the Robin Williams story at the Comedy Store. He goes, "I got to tell you, one time I was at the Comedy Store and Robin Williams right in front of me was doing my joke." He goes, "The
Mhm.
problem was he did it so much fucking better than I did it."
Yeah,
So,
that was the
um,
hard part.
yeah. Our second to last word of expression is closing joke.
I start thinking about which one do I choose, because usually with my show it's a closing song, so I have about 4 different closing songs, and uh, I hear that word and I think decision. I think decision. What is my decision? I have to
Yeah.
choose a closer. So what is it going to be? So that's the first thing I think of.
Well, and it's great to have more than one, by the way. If you're those you comics out there, have at least a couple because it's usually
Yes.
much better if you have a couple. And our last word for let's associate or expression is social media.
Lifeblood. It's social media is with the business that I'm in. All my eggs are in that basket. I think social media is here to stay. I think it's become a human antenna, so to speak. You know how ants communicate with each other through an antenna, and I think that that's our way of humans have immediate communication with each other is through that channel. So I think we're always going to have it, and I think our comedy part of it is always going to be one of the best and most sellable aspects about it. So I think social media is a good thing, not a bad thing.
Yeah, I agree. And that being said, that's all we have time for here on the Wake Up Late with Dougie show. I want to
Right on,
thank
man.
my
I
good
appreciate you having me.
I want to thank my good friend Ron Feingold for joining us today. And of course, if you have not already, please subscribe to Open Bar Comedy on YouTube and on Facebook. And anything else you want to promote before you leave, Ron?
I think you just did. RonFeingold.com. I'll be on tour this late summer and early fall into December, actually. And but really appreciate all of the growth with Open Bar. And please check out our comedians. They're really some of the best out there, and they're just now being discovered.
That's right. And you can find me on there too. So please go check
Absolutely.
our stuff out. Ron Feingold, everybody. And that's the end of our show. And what I'd like to do is tell everybody on this Monday, coming up Monday next week, I will be at the House of Comedy in Detroit competing in the World Series of Comedy. But on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, you can catch me at the Pittsburgh Improv opening for Steve Trevino and his Simple Man tour. Steve is an amazing comic, funny as balls. So please come out and see us. I'll be opening up for him at the Pittsburgh Improv next week on Friday through Sunday. For more dates, go to DougieAlmeida.com. Please make sure you follow us on Instagram at the Wake Up Late with Dougie Show, on Twitter, or now known as X, at Wake Up Dougie, and all the other stuff you find me at Dougie Dangerous on Instagram. We love you. You guys, please be nice to your fellow citizen, your fellow human, and go check out a comedy show, won't you? See you next time right here at the same spot.
Wake up. I'm not psycho. Wake up. Wake up.